Hey, good morning, happy afternoon, or happy evening, wherever you are. I'm Vijay from HackBuddy, and today I am essentially just hanging out. It's been a couple days after my layoff, and I'm just basically kind of going through the motions. Again, like in my last video, I had said that layoffs are a little hard because they just kind of come out of nowhere and they're unexpected, but you can't really take them personally. I had a few phone calls, in fact, actually one today where, I was talking to a recruiter and we were just talking about like what kind of jobs can I do, moving forward, because I'm starting to look for something else, and I kind of said to him on the phone, like, well, I want a job where I won't get laid off again, where the culture is pretty cool and it's stable and people are, happy and not complaining about the workplace. We were starting to laugh after I made that statement because I think in 2023, it's not something that you can kind of like expect these days. Like layoffs just happen. Asking for something stable, whether it being contract or salary, there's always going to be one day where you'll probably just wake up and you're like, well, I'm laid off and it sucks. You just got to be ready for like things like that, because companies are moving fast and, a lot of times too, there's a lot of competition. Business decisions get made quick. So that's all I can say in that space. And so you should be making decisions for your own life. I think for me, I'm just basically gonna, be a little bit more interview ready every month, right? Like I want to work for a good company and I want to work for a company that'll keep me long term, but it's naive to think that I can just stay at the same place for as long as I really want. So, and I'd say this also too, like for anybody listening, like you should always just kind of be like in practice mode, like maybe spend a little bit more time after your workday to just kind of like go through maybe some books, technical books, read, or maybe even just kind of like practice some coding problems, or maybe even do like some coding challenges or create like some other like coding thing. But do it like not obsessively or paranoid. Do it like from a frame like you'll do it like maybe once every week. I think that's a good healthy mindset. You shouldn't be like working all the time and working super excessive long hours because that'll just make you really burned out. It seems like a lot of engineers who do really well in the space are people who are young because they can sit by the computer for a long time and just like really like grind and grind and grind. It gets harder to do that though, like as you age, like as you start to get in your 30s and maybe even late 30s, because like you'll start having like other commitments. You'll probably have like a partner or maybe some children along the way. Your parents might start aging too, and so you might have to take care of your parents. Those are all things that I had to deal with, this last 2 years. It gets pretty hard to just burn the midnight oil every day. And if that's kind of like your strategy at the moment, I would say, try to like be a little bit more careful because, it's not sustainable. You'll probably set yourself up for failure in the future. You need to like create like patterns that you can keep doing even in your older age. I remember like there was something I heard a long time ago where you want to progressively make your life like easier, not harder. So like if you're working really, really hard, like in your 20s and 30s, there may be an expectation as you move up that you work even harder. And that's actually counterintuitive to making money because like technically if you're a business, you want to make something like easier and easier to get like profit, right? Like year over year, not more and more difficult because that just raises the expense. But I think a lot of our software engineers, like we tend to make things more difficult, and then like we get into this trap where we're just like, oh man, I gotta even grind harder and harder and harder. And so for me, like I've been kind of like thinking about like what can I do to kind of like make things simpler. But that's not to say I don't want to like do hard work. I'm just being clear here. I want to make it so that it's simpler for me to get to a certain path or a goal that I have, given all these things that are happening, like economically, like layoffs and all that, right? Like I do want to move up as a software engineer, not go backwards. But, I'm also like realistic too. If something happens where, I'm not able to make a certain salary anymore, then, I just have to kind of like go along with the market. But what I'll do is try to plan for like, a more successful path, and a path that also leads to me being able to kind of work at an efficient level so that I'm not like burning the midnight oil every day. Anyway, long story short, right, like there's a book I wanted to talk about too called The Missing README. That's something I picked up this morning and it's pretty cool. It was a book I found, I think, last Christmas or something like that. And, it was just going through it, like I was reminded of so many things that I did in the past year. And this is a great book. I'm going to read the whole thing and probably give some details, but just from the first chapter, essentially, it kind of talks about like a destination for people in this career. And I think like this book kind of gives like a sustainable path, which is great because, if you follow kind of like this guide, you will probably level up and you probably get to that next destination or that next level that is so difficult to get to. One of the things that I kind of feel like I faced that was difficult at the last 4 years, I have to be careful with the wording, but yeah, like it was getting like performance reviews. It's more difficult, I think, in this time because a lot of managers too are just like stressed out, and so they don't have the time to kind of talk to you. And you'll probably deal with a lot of absentee managers. Even friends too, like if you try to talk to your friends, on LinkedIn or whatever, especially in the working space, they might not have the time to give you any kind of feedback. So you just have to be like more diligent and like strategic about how you get feedback, because like if you don't get that critical feedback, you can't improve and you can't progress to the next level. And that's actually why I want to like have like this vlog series, because I feel like being transparent opens myself up to like, some kind of feedback. Although this is YouTube and I probably might get like a lot of harsh critical feedback, which is, it is what it is, whatever happens. Like, you can always delete the comment too if it's really horrible. But, like all things assuming that it's good critical feedback and useful, then, I can use it to apply to like, building my career and stuff like that. Like, so in any case, like I just want to be more transparent about like where I'm going and what I want to do next. I mentioned that stuff in the last video, like data structures and algorithms, backend. Those are things that I want to work out. I have a full list of stuff that I want to do, but yeah, just like ultimately like just being more transparent about like where I'm at and all that, and just using this book as a guide, really, like The Missing README. I think I'll be in a better spot. There's some pointers that like from again the last 4 years, right, like I kind of wish I knew about, or I kind of had like heated, that came up in this book. Essentially, like when you onboard, right, you should use that time to essentially understand a lot of like the code and the documentation and basically like how the team works. And I think like a mistake that I was making a lot was like, seeing a lot of the documentation and code just being like all over the place, scattered, broken, out of date. And I would kind of feel like, oh man, why is this like this? And I would just kind of like complain to like other engineers. And I think like that wasn't really sort of like the right approach. And if I could do it over, I probably would instead be a little bit more assertive about it. Like I would say, okay, it's not working, let me go find the correct solution, and then update the documentation. That's actually a really good practice. Like if something doesn't work, you don't just say, oh, it doesn't work, and then like put the blame back on the software team. You just kind of like say, it's not working, here's a solution I tried, here's an update to the documentation, and then let them kind of like decipher whether they want it or not. I think also maybe it was fear too. Like I was like, if I mess with this right now, and tell people that it's not working and then make an update, they might judge me for like making like something that causes more pain for them too. Or they might think, well, you're just a new guy, like why are you like updating our stuff when you don't even have context? But I feel like in retrospect, I feel like maybe you should, as a developer, like contribute, because the worst thing that happens is like people will just say, oh, it's not right, and then they'll fix it, which is actually your end goal. And by doing that often, you're actually helping the team kind of build forward and like make the documentation better. So that's something that moving forward I want to actually do more of, like is improve documentation where I can, improve like the team's understanding of the tech stacks that they work with, and and really help out. Like that's what I think is a good team player. So this is like from the first chapter as I was reading. Like I said, I'll probably read the whole thing and just kind of give summaries. I think that's something I can do with these video series. But yeah, there was a lot of good stuff in here that just basically, like, if you're onboarding to a new company, make sure that you do just kind of like ask a lot of questions, and you also write down as much as you can for yourself, research a lot of the technologies you don't know. Like, so if there's a technology you don't know, like there were several technologies I didn't know over the past 4 years, but like I had to kind of like ramp up really quickly, AWS being one of them. So I would ask a lot of questions about AWS, or even GraphQL. That was something I had to learn pretty fast, and just really look for people who can talk to you. I would call somebody on Zoom and just ask them for like 20 to 30 minutes of the time. Sometimes that might be too much of an ask. You can also ask for less time and be like 5-10 minutes with a person. Some people will be like, okay, yeah, 5-10 minutes is not too bad, and they'll give you that time. But like with tech, it can be in rabbit holes, and so you may end up getting stuck with that person, and they may not know how to help you. And so, you just kind of have to know how to help yourself. I feel like you should definitely be investing in yourself every year, buying like courses or tech books, and then being able to just kind of watch that on a separate computer and just kind of help yourself get better. Maybe I'm preaching a lot of the obvious here, but for people who don't know that, I'm just also throwing that out. And then, yeah, just essentially you have to make it so that you're visible. If you're not visible at your company, then the default feedback you might get, and I think this is really where I want to hammer home, at least with this first chapter today in this video, is that the default feedback is nothing, right? Like, and nothing can be perceived as good or bad. But like most often you'll just hear, like maybe from a absentee manager or something like that, oh yeah, everything's great, no need to worry. If you hear that, in my mind, I actually kind of feel like, that is actually average, right? Because you're not really standing out. You're not really like helping them move the needle, right? Somebody who, like if a manager is excited to talk to you, that's actually like a sign that you're doing pretty well. Now that's really hard to do because exciting a manager all the time may eventually lead to like a normalization where you're like, okay, you're always exciting, and so that becomes boring. You have to be strategic about how often you're exciting. But again, like the default is no news, right? Like, okay, you're doing great. So you just have to be strategic with those little bursts of like when you excite the managers, right? And by doing that, eventually like you might have a more favorable review. I think the people who just kind of go about their careers like hoping, that they're just, everything's fine, they're the ones who are usually like the most surprised when like, they're the ones picked for a layoff, because like they're like, why? I thought I was doing fine. But I'm telling you this because like I have the experience, right? I think like the people who stay on, right, at some of these companies, and take it with a grain of salt here, because like if a company's losing money, you probably want to run away anyway, right? So and it's probably a blessing you got laid off anyway. If you're somebody who is not really that exciting, and you're not like visible, and you're not getting critical feedback often, I know this book tells like you should have one-on-ones with your managers, and you should try to really ask them for like advice. But in my mind, I actually think that might be really difficult to pull off in 2023. Instead, you should try your best to, talk to others around you, and, try to be more strategic and think about how you can build stuff that, raises your visibility, because that's exciting. So I'll talk about that in another video sometime. But yeah, reviews are harder to get, I think, these days, and they'll probably be harder and harder to get because companies probably don't want to give reviews other than as required by like contract, because like every time they have to give a review, they may have to like give you more money, and companies are trying to reduce expenses. I could be wrong here, because there are some companies that are really good about promotion and all that, but like, in my mind, I think like the default manager or owner is probably like, yeah, I just want my engineers to like do great work, but I'm not gonna like, overextend myself because I got bills to pay or something like that. So that's how I kind of think with a lot of these review sessions. And like some companies are, sometimes like little cheap in that like they'll lay off everybody before the review comes, right? So that way they don't have to pay out bonuses and stuff like that. But if you're exciting, you may escape that. So that's why I'm saying all this. In any case, at the end of this video, right, like don't worry about a lot of this stuff if it's like not fluid for you yet. Like I said, a lot of this too, I'm just kind of like speaking very generically for now, and I think these are things that I just want to like have out there in the open. What do you think? Do you feel like you know, like reviews are harder to get, critical feedback is harder to get? How do you deal with it? I'm interested. Yeah, I've got a ton of things I want to talk about, like a ton of like ideas, and you know, even ChatGPT. I'll just kind of end with this. Like if you have trouble pair programming, that's such a great tool to use right now to help you kind of like, you know, learn stuff faster. It's just machine language, like curated stuff that is really good sometimes, and also kind of like debatable, but at least it'll help you kind of like get through code. One of the videos I want to do upcoming is like a demonstration of Copilot and even ChatGPT and how you can like use it to help you like learn when you have those downtimes where no one else will help you, and how you can kind of use it to improve your path forward. All right, anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my vlogs. I'll try to do them maybe like 2 times a week, but if it's weekly, you know, forgive me because like I got a lot to go through myself as well, but I'm trying to be a little bit more transparent anyway with my overall journey to becoming a better engineer. All right, see you all next video, and thanks for subscribing, and like this video if it was enjoyable to you, and yeah, we'll see you maybe at a meetup as well. All right.